Good afternoon. Welcome to our open house at 106 Eastwood Ave. What I'd like to talk to you about today is a couple of questions. What is geothermal and what's it going to do for me? Important questions when you decide how to improve your home heating and comfort systems. A lot of people think of geothermal as old faithful. Well, that's not the type of geothermal we're talking about. What we talk about is the heat that lies just below the surface of the ground, anywhere from 6 feet deep to 500 feet deep. We can tap into that heat and we can capture it with the use of this polyethylene pipe material. Incredibly robust. It's got a guarantee of 50 years, got a design life of 100 years, and in all likelihood it'll last longer than the building it's connected to. What happens underground is we transfer heat from the nominal 50-degree earth temperature. We're going to circulate fluid that is colder than that. We may go into this pipe at 38 degrees. It's naturally going to warm up, and it could come back out at 44 degrees. You cannot stop this. This is a natural heat transfer phenomenon, and it's more reliable than just about anything else out there in the way of home heating systems. The magic, though, is the heat pump. Newspaper headline, New York Times. I remember it well. GE ready to push heat pump sales. New department is organized to mass produce as well as distribute product. Well, I gotta be honest, I don't remember it. It was before I was a gleam in my mother's eye. But you do have a heat pump, and you are actually quite familiar with it. Let's say you go to the store and buy your favorite beverage. You go home, and you got to cool it down, say from 50 to 40 degrees. You're going to extract heat from that beverage. And that heat is going to come out by your feet or up the wall inside your house. So the beer is actually heating your house. And of course you recognize this as the classic beer to feet heat pump, or commonly known as a refrigerator. How does a heat pump work? Well, we can warm air, and in this case it happens to illustrate a heat pump heating 2,000 cubic feet a minute of airflow, raising the temperature 27 degrees and delivering 58,000 BTUs to the house. The earth loop is contributing based on a flow rate of 15 gallons a minute and a 6-degree temperature drop. It's contributing 45,000 BTUs out of that 58,000. And that is free. We have a term called the coefficient of performance, which is like efficiency, but it can go above 100%. Here is the heating output of the device. Here is, we're dividing by the difference between the output and the free heat. So what you have to buy from the electric utility company is 13,320 BTUs per hour. And if you convert that to kilowatts, that will show up on your electric meter. But this ratio is called the COP. And at a ratio of 4.38, we're delivering 4.38 units of heat for every single unit of heat we have to buy. So it could be 438% efficient. which is hard to understand, but a heat pump simply moves heat. We're not creating heat. This is a particular product company called Geostar, which makes some of the most diverse set of heat pumps, from what we call split systems, outdoor splits, packaged units, water-to-water heat pumps. And this happens to be a particular monitored unit in Western New York back in April 15th, and it illustrates how the variable speed compressor is changing speed throughout the day just to keep up with the amount of heat required to keep the house warm. Now look at a small lot residential application. It is our home in Owasco, New York, in a pretty tight urban setting. And we're going to zoom in via Google Earth. We do have 7.6 kW of solar collectors. That is ideally facing south. Our geothermal loop field is located in the front yard. And this is what happened this morning. This is a graph from a product we call Symphony, which we monitor the data points of the heat pump and record them every 10 seconds. It's a fantastic product, and the bottom chart here illustrates the compressor speed, essentially operating on speed 1 out of 12 most of the time. It is cycling off occasionally because it's not cold enough outside to really require a continuous operation. At the beginning of every on cycle, you'll see it ramp up to speed 6 for about 30 seconds or so, and that's to properly circulate oil through all the moving parts of the compressor. And in early morning, about 7:30, the heat pump ramped up and ran at a little higher speed as we were recovering from a night setback. If we look back to a pretty cold day, January 31st of this year, you'll see that the compressor ran continuously for the entire day. And our morning warm-up period is illustrated right here. The outdoor temperature is this purple line that gets above 0 only for a few hours during the day. The scale on the left only goes down to 0, so the outdoor temperature was below 0 most of this day. If we look at the inside of the heat pump on this particular day, we got up to speed 11, and we can show that our return air temperature is 69.6. We're supplying air to the house at 95.9 degrees, raising the air roughly 26 degrees. Our earth loop is entering our heat pump at 36.8 degrees. We're extracting 5.1 degrees of heat out of it, and we're sending it back to the earth at 31.7. This is 30,177 BTUs per hour that we're extracting from the earth. This is a powerful tool for your service technician. If you ever have a problem with your heat pump, they can access this data remotely and help diagnose the heat pump without even showing up at your house, perhaps. This is the heat pump down in the basement. This little device here is what communicates to the internet and stores our operating data through that Symphony platform. This is a flow center. It's got a variable speed pump on it that operates only hard enough as dictated by the operating speed of the heat pump compressor. So it's fascinating technology. And as a result of this installation, we have removed our gas meter. The results are total energy bill, which is 100% electric, is about $30 a month, but since we bought our electric vehicle, it has gone up to about $50 a month. So I'm spending $20 a month in electricity, and I haven't been to a gas station since we bought this car about 11 months ago. Both the house comfort, heating, everything in the house, plus the driving of the electric vehicle has zero carbon emissions. Now let's talk about carbon emissions. A 100-watt light bulb left on 2 hours per day will probably produce about 77 pounds of carbon dioxide every year. An SUV, which is the favorite target of environmentalists, I happen to like SUVs, but it will produce on average nearly 15,000 pounds of carbon dioxide. And then we have Grandma, who has a small house. She heats it with oil, and just to stay warm during the winter, Grandma's going to produce 24,000 pounds of carbon dioxide. If we look at a small, modest office building, about 30,000 square feet, and we heat it with natural gas and cool it in accordance with the New York State Energy Code, that building will produce 341,000 pounds of carbon dioxide the first year, and every year after that, due to the degradation of combustion products, will get worse and worse. However, if we incorporate geothermal the same way we've done in our house, we can drive that carbon emission down to zero. The electricity that's providing energy to that building would also have to be sourced from a renewable energy source. Now, the second thing that's going to happen is Grandma is going to become public enemy number one. And yes, you can see Grandma is very proud of that distinction. The sustainable renewable cycle, your house loses heat constantly when the outdoor temperature gets below your desired indoor temperature. And with geothermal, we can heat that home, and 60 to 80% of the heat is supplied by the earth, and the remainder we send to the electric utility industry. They turn around and take those increased revenues and lower peak demands that are associated with geothermal, and now they can make significant investments to develop the smart grid, where electric cars become battery storage, and all sorts of wonderful control of our energy through the electric infrastructure, which then has the benefit of turning solar PV and wind energy into more sustainable, renewable energy sources. So with that, I'm going to close this simple presentation and open it up to questions. And certainly if you're watching this video on YouTube, I'd appreciate you subscribing to the channel, but also send me your questions. I will try to answer them. So thanks again for joining me today, and looking forward to a more sustainable future. Thank you.